morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, wonderful. Should I feel like in the middle so we can hear best. Okay. There we go. All right.
Good morning,
Success.
Joe. How you doing?
Everything's good. How's everybody?
Did you say words?
All right, so we have myself, Mr. Lundy, we have our executive director, Ms. Zarevsky, Dean of Students, Mr. Lopez, and our school social worker, Ms. Rash, here present with us, along with Victoria and Connor. First, I want to go over the results of the threat assessment, and I gave you 2 copies, one for you and
Okay,
one for Joe.
perfect. I was like, that's big. Now it makes sense.
So this form really, it kind of just summarizes, the report all the way through our investigation and findings, and everything. And so some of the information at the top is just demographic information, like who's involved with the threat assessment. It was the 4 of us and Officer Kanugi made up the threat assessment team.
And then a member of the district.
And then a member of our district, Kenlon Newman, was our charter liaison as well. And then, of course, you guys were a part of that also. So going back, summarizing the events of February 14th, a student, the parent of a student called to report that their student's friend had told them that they thought they had seen what looked like a gun on Connor. While on that call, Ms. S and Officer Kanugi were on that call when the parent of the complainant called and stated essentially the same, that her child had seen what had appeared to be a gun on Connor. During 9th period class, the complainant stated that he was messing with Connor's computer, and while Connor was playing a game and touched the space bar, and that Connor lifted up his shirt and stated, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And he saw what appeared to be a gun. On Tuesday, during the interview, that student described what he saw as being black, having letters and numbers on it, and the part that he saw was what looked like a barrel, and the handle was under the shirt. That student stated that he did not report to any adults at school because he was afraid that Connor would get angry and that would put others in danger. And so from there, that started the investigation. Police were dispatched to your home, Victoria. They called you Joe. My understanding is that also Wells County deputies came out to your house, Joe. That's correct?
Rockville Police was not one.
Rockville, okay. So during the process, we've interviewed Connor, we interviewed the complainant, we interviewed the witness, we interviewed teachers. We also interviewed both you and Joe on Connor's behalf as well. So throughout the investigation, what we have found, and I won't go through the whole threat assessment, like you guys will have time to read it, so I'll just go through the conclusion and the reasons behind the conclusion. And so our conclusion at the end is that right now, based on what we were able to uncover, or the information that we received during the investigation process of the threat assessment, that we don't believe that Connor poses an imminent threat to the school or any individual. However, due to information that was uncovered, and I'll go over that, we do have concern for potential for future threat based on the information received through the interviews with you guys. And that's mainly due to the fact that you guys expressed that Connor does have knives and airsoft guns. And so the concern is that those items might make their way to school if we don't intervene. And not saying that we believe that Connor is going to do something to anyone, but it's the potential for that to happen. And so based on that, some of the internet activity and interest in different things. We want to make sure that we intervene and support Connor so that his interest in those things don't carry over into an unhealthy interest, if that makes sense. So with that, what we learned is, although you guys both expressed that you have firearms in the home and they're locked up, you also expressed that Connor owns weapons of his own, including knives and airsoft guns. And so we want to ensure that those items don't make their way into school. There were some, during the interview with you guys, it was expressed that Connor will put his knives on when he gets home. And so we don't want to, like, make that something.
How is that a problem? What does, explain to me what he does.
Well, what he does at home
has
isn't a
anything
problem.
to do with that.
What we're wanting to make sure of is that doesn't become like a temptation to maybe put them on before school and come to school with them. So
That's ridiculous, man. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
the internet search history, going back to the knife search, as well as the gun emoji search, and those things also come into play with that.
So that, we looked on his live thing, the live school thing, I just went all the way back, and that wasn't even mentioned at all.
So we actually did not have live school up and running when that happened. So that was prior
There
to.
was, no, in the entire month of August, there was stuff that was in there.
Our live school count started in September.
I pulled it up in August. Like, I went through and did all the, because you can pick the dates in between, and then you can see what it happened that week, and then it will do a thing for the, and there was even it was a bad one that said that Miss Yonker was like, this guy's not on task at all. Like, what's going on? And it was in August.
What are you referring to as far as, what wasn't on live school?
That the knife and the gun emoji or whatever, the knife one, because the gun emoji did not happen,
yeah.
or didn't flag.
Yeah.
But the gun emoji wasn't on there, there wasn't a dean intervention one, there was nothing.
That's in the history of the Chromebook, though, not on live school.
I know,
Not securely.
but there was nothing mentioned in live school in August.
And being that it wasn't mentioned in live school doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So not everything is documented in live school.
That's a big one to
So
not
that one I
document.
believe you
Yeah.
saw, so
Yes.
just pulled him down.
Yeah, and again, our live school account wasn't live until September.
Hold on, I can forward you the email that I took screenshots and
Okay.
sent them over to Joe, so,
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, there was a long period of time to get everybody's, like the database essentially in once we started live school, so that took a period of time to get.
okay, hey
all
Joe,
of
can you
that
forward that
information
email
in.
real quick?
So unless teachers backdated things,
Who am I
Yeah.
sending it to?
Which they could've.
Happened in August. I didn't put it in live school because we didn't have live school access at that time. So that wasn't. And I spoke to you about that, and we talked about. He said he wanted a hunting knife, and you confirmed that, and so I was like, well,
So I talked to you in August about
Yes.
the knife thing.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't remember, but that's fine. I feel like, because we would have been like jumping down his throat, for being honest.
Yes, there was no communication from the school in regards to that particular one in August.
I mean, if you-
communication from
I
any
spoke
parties
to
at
you
the
because
school
we
in
talked about
regards to that
applying
search.
for a hunting knife, and that was why I didn't go further with a threat screen. Like I said, had I seen the gun
But if
emoji
it made
search,
it on this threat
that would
screen,
have
why
been
weren't
different.
we at least notified?
What was that? I didn't hear.
I said, if it was so significant for this particular incident, why weren't we notified?
Well, he's saying that he talked to me on the phone, and I don't
guys pause.
recall.
I'm struggling with the lack of communication from the school.
So,
here. There's
can I
so
borrow
many
a
red
pen?
flags
Sorry, I did
going
not
on
come
right now.
prepared. I can pull up my phone calls and try to figure out, do you remember what day?
the search was on August 29th, so,
Yeah.
and it was after
The
school.
beginning of the school year. The beginning of the school year.
Mm-hmm. So I can pull up those calls and like figure out, and then, because I'm just not recalling. I feel like That doesn't mean, trust me, if I don't remember it, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But, so yeah, I will look. Okay. And so because he has,
So with the, see if I can help you guys understand.
Yes, please.
So with this incident on
That didn't happen.
14th, all these things come into play. So if a student makes a threat, and based on his interview, which initially he denied the interaction happening, he told you guys he didn't recall it.
because it
When we
didn't do,
interviewed
because
him-
it didn't spark a memory, like, this is what you remember.
When we interviewed him and asked him to go through the day, he omitted the interaction. Asked specifically if he had any interactions with any other students, he stated no. And then when I brought up someone touching stuff, and he brought up that this kid touched his space bar and tried to touch his nose. So that corroborates that the interaction happened. So that confirms
That someone came into his space and started messing
And-
with him. This is the
Based-
only thing that's been corroborated.
Based on
And there
that,
was a conversation
and that
between the two of them.
it is more likely than not.
It's not though. It's,
It-
that way is not it. That's not,
So based on reasonable suspicion of the circumstances, it is more likely than not that it's possible that a threatening gesture was made, even though we don't know that a weapon was present or not. We cannot confirm whether or
No.
not he had a weapon, and we are not.
or that the
going to-
friend that he talked to and said exactly what happened is the one that is confirming what was said,
So-
standing behind him.
The irony is that the witness we spoke to is the witness that Connor recommended we speak to. And that was who corroborated the interaction as well, and stated that they saw Connor pull up his shirt, but they
From
didn't
behind
see a
him.
weapon. Yeah.
From behind him. What does this look like to you?
Explain to
Anything?
me what the threatening gesture was. What is the gesture that was considered threatening that you guys are, basing all of this judgment upon?
So as we've stated, it's the pulling up of the shirt.
He-
So,
That only one
Eight
person
people of
is
his
confirming,
shirt.
which is the kid that's accusing him.
and the witness.
That was standing behind
The
him.
witness,
I don't know what's going on in your back right now. Like, there's no way. Any type of shoulder movement would look like he could have been like, I don't care if you flipped him off. But that doesn't mean anything in front of me cannot be seen behind me. You know what I mean? Like, I wish you would have stood up and said, get the fuck out of my space. I really do. Because I feel like we would have been so much in a different spot. And you'd be in trouble for swearing, and this kid would be freaking in trouble for coming into his space. Connor was doing nothing. That's the only thing that's been confirmed.
So it's middle
So
school
that's
boys.
what's been corroborated.
It's middle school boys.
So what?
That's
This isn't the world we live in.
so, but that's neither here nor there. Right?
It's here and here.
So what we have to look at are the things that we know happen, and we know that there was an interaction.
That some kid came into a space. Yes, that's what we know.
We know that between the two students, Connor and the other student, the complainant,
That
was an
that he
interaction.
said, "Get away from me."
We know that we have a witness that was present that also states the same thing.
That he saw through human skin, bones, and body and shirts. That he saw him lift up his
So
shirt.
it's very reasonable if someone is behind you and you're sitting in a chair like the ones we have in our classrooms, that if someone could see this motion from behind, even if they don't know exactly what.
Am I still touching my shirt?
So
Is this it? Is this still the same motion? You know what I mean?
So with that, in addition to the internet search history and the access to weapons, we want to ensure that there is no possibility for Connor to bring a weapon or carry out any type of act at school. And so we don't believe that he is a threat right now, but we are
It's
intervening.
never.
We are intervening to ensure that that never happens. And please understand that
I don't
I
understand.
I
So it doesn't
empathize and
matter.
understand your guys' perspective and where you're coming from as parents, and you know your kid. Okay, I don't have children of my own, but if I did, and this were to happen to my kid, I would be just as defensive. But in my mind, I would also think that I'm not around my kid all the time, and so it's possible that they could do something that I don't believe
Or
they would do.
could it be possible also that two kids were messing around behind him and they're like, hey, watch this. Go over to mess with him and then to get a rise out of him or try to bully him or something like that? Is that not possible? Because we wouldn't be sitting here had Rando not come over and entered his space and touched his stuff. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't be here at all. So that should be addressed as well, right? Or is it just because someone came and poked you in the face and you punched him in the head, you're in trouble, right?
If I don't respond in that way, then no, at that point, if I get attacked by someone and I defend myself, that's different than making a threat to someone, or
He came over and physically touched his stuff. Is that not that's threatening to me? Like, why are you so close to me? What's going on?
But had Connor punched him in the face, we wouldn't be here. Right?
We would be here because he would be in trouble for defending himself.
Here, there would be no threat assessment. There would be this process.
So someone physically punching someone in the face is not a threat versus someone making up an imaginary threat of a gun, of some story that was concocted over a weekend.
So these are different levels of protocol. So a fight and
Because he contained himself? Because he has the discipline from all of the things that he does to not punch the kid in the face? That shows to me that he's not a threat.
Again, based on the information we have, it is reasonable that the incident occurred. Even without a weapon present, it is reasonable to believe that Connor stated something and showed some type of gesture by pulling up his shirt. It is reasonable.
That the teacher didn't see, that there was a room full of 15 kids.
Okay, so there is no confirmed verbiage as to what he said. There's been no corroborated statement that he did anything. There's nothing that says he made the statement, are you sure you want this? There's been only one person that's been able to say that, period.
And it was the kid that he was messing with it behind him.
Now,
Together, the two of them.
They were not.
the struggle that we are having here,
I didn't say they both were, but they were messing with each other.
your threat assessment is based upon incorrect information, and now you want to intervene because Connor has habits that are none of the school's business. Now, you're basing my child's academic future on assumption and lack of detail. The only thing you guys found has been a nasty search history that we need to address and that we intend to address, and
That
we are not very
he's taking
approving
credit for.
of. And all of this is based on somebody who incited this incident. Connor was sitting there minding his business. Somebody came into his personal space, tried to touch him, and here we are. So your threat assessment is based upon somebody else starting an incident with our child. And every bit of evidence that you guys have is inconclusive. It would never hold up in court. It wouldn't hold up anywhere.
Well, we have a different burden of proof than the
And
court
we've had to
system.
turn our lives upside down for this. We have essentially halted our work schedules. We have bent over backwards to make sure that we're available and he's available. And it's the more information you present, the less information I feel is solidified. And if this is your approach, because it seems to me that you've already made up your mind. It seems to me that there is nothing that's going to support Connor in this, and that he is somehow a bad person because he wants to know how to hunt. He wants to be a part of the military, he wants to be part of law enforcement. You guys think that he is now a threat because he has the interest in being educated in these so-called scary activities.
So I wanna, I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but I wanna reiterate that our assessment, we found and concluded that Connor is not an imminent threat. The concern is about what could possibly
He could
come about.
potentially become a threat.
And
Potentially become a threat, right? Is that it?
yes, and this is honestly, we've, with law enforcement, with the district, concluded the same as we, with the information that we have, and much of that information came from the two of you about his interest, about his weapons.
Because we're honest.
Those things.
And we are not
appreciate
ashamed
that.
of how
We-
that's going to happen. It's absolutely not going to change. I mean,
this-
we are going to protect ourselves from wherever, but like that doesn't mean we have guns hanging from the mirrors at home. Like, we're not stupid, and that's not safe. Like, both of us are very much aware of all of that. And I can guarantee half of your population probably has the same style of parents. That's what happens. I'm almost guaranteeing it. But when I'm reading here is that you're saying that his story changed. It didn't change. He just added to it.
It did change because he initially denied not having an interaction.
He just said, I don't remember. He said, I don't remember anything that happened because to him, it didn't spark, right? I mean, speak up for yourself, man. Like, seriously, if it's just because it didn't, like, if I moved my cup right here and then I didn't tell you 2 weeks later that I moved my cup right there, it's not that I'm not omitting anything. It just didn't ring a bell. But this kid's changed. The kid that you're talking about, his story has changed, and it has changed. It was added to, just like his story was added to.
So here's the difference. And when Connor gave his narrative, he stated that he came in the room, he sat down, he did his work. When he was done doing his work, he read a book and then went and talked to a friend. It's different than how I moved my water bottle. I might forget that part because it's not a big detail. Having an interaction with another student at this level, that is the reason for this whole thing, like, that was omitted. And that's a pretty big detail that was omitted. And it was still omitted when asked clarifying questions until it was brought in. Like, did someone mess with your stuff? Even when asked, was there any interaction with the 7th grader? He stated he talked to this other 7th grader who was arguing with this girl, and he told him to be careful and watch his back, right? Still leaving out, oh yeah, I got into a thing with this other kid who was messing with my computer. So the story did change. It changed from, I did my work, I read my book, I went and sat with a friend, to, oh yeah, this did happen, but after being probed into this happening. This kid's story didn't change. This kid
It just added that there was a serial number and weapon details.
We asked for a description. That's not changing the story, that's clarifying details. He didn't say, I didn't see anything, and then I saw something, or it was silver, no, it was black. That would be the story changing. It was more of, describe to us what you saw, which didn't change. It was more detailed. So, with that, again, please understand, the conclusion of our threat assessment is, again, we don't believe that Connor is an immediate or imminent threat to anyone. We want to intervene and to support Connor in his interest in all these things in a healthy way. And that's
It's just,
what our,
but on this one, it says that are those who know the student concerned that they may take action or violent plans, ideas, and it says is concerned that Connor may retaliate against him for reporting.
this student is concerned, yes. He fears that Connor may retaliate against him. That doesn't mean that Connor will. That's what the student.
But I mean, we're clearly going off anything that this kid says. So, I mean, he can just point the finger and then he's a crappy storyteller. But nope, he's this kid. This is where it's at.
It's just answering the question.
answering the
Is
question.
there anyone that fears something?
Mhm.
There is someone.
And it's
So
the
we have
guy,
to answer
it's
that.
the one that is saying it. So that's fine. And I mean, are you guys looking at your own, like, set of firewall rules or all this stuff? Because to me, this should have been caught sooner. Because I mean, what I found it since December 4th, which was, you know, as far back as this computer would save, a lot
And I
of
didn't look
stupid
back-
stuff.
I didn't look back that far.
But you said you were looking at him since August.
Yes, I've been monitoring since August, meaning I've been looking for things to come through. And again, and I've explained this to you guys, and this is something we're working to get fixed with our IT department. I haven't gotten any alerts for Connor's search history.
But the way you said it, it was like you're checking in on him every day. I'm looking at his
I
stuff.
said I've been monitoring, which means that I've been looking
Monitoring
for
for
different
flags.
things to be flagged, and nothing has been flagged because for whatever reason our system isn't flagging it. And then I think with some of the stuff, because it was like a YouTube thing, right? If you can get to YouTube, if YouTube does not deem certain things adult content or whatever, you can watch it. And so we have to go into YouTube and try and filter some of these things out, because we can't block YouTube altogether because our teachers use it for educational purposes. So we have to, we have some work to do to fix some things within our filtering system. So that's what this has brought into light also. So we have to get with our IT guys. But the internet history I pulled is from the last 30 days. I didn't pull everything. From the last 30 days, there are 100 pages.
Yeah. And again,
So
something that needs to be addressed. But I mean, I feel like you might need to tap into everyone's stuff also, because you're probably going to find the same thing
look,
on every 14-year-old boy's computer.
well, that filter is not only for Connor. I get alerts for everyone that.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm not saying that you're
But-
just looking at his stuff, but you didn't.
With-
Did he get flagged?
With the knife search, I've specifically put an additional alert for Connor, and he's not the only one. There are others.
Oh, I'm sure.
And anytime that, what I wanted to get was anytime that there was a search for a weapon, not even the other stuff, that wasn't even on my radar. It was just weapons, guns, knives, any type of weapons. Those were the things that I was looking for. And because nothing had come through, I haven't gotten any alerts for Connor specifically, right? I haven't been too concerned about it. But I also have not looked at anything past the past 30 days, right? Between then and 30 days ago, I don't know what his search history looks like, right? And would it have made a difference in this? No, not at all, right? Even if I can pull from September through January 31st or February 13th and see searches for weapons, different things like that, it does not change where we are right now.
Oh, I know. Nothing, because the kid already said it. So, and then I have the thing right here that says the document students' current behavior. I looked every freaking day at that live school, because I was kind of catching up. And this is a blip of those. A blip. And it says current behavior summary. Connor's life school history summary has instances of being off task, class disruptions, profanity, being unprepared for class, and playing inappropriate games in school device during class. A blip
That's actually that's a summary
of the bad crap, of the bad stuff. There's this much bad stuff and this much good stuff, but you're not going to look at that, are you? No, you're just going to look at the crap that just has the little red dot.
That form is only asking for things that are bad.
Then you're not looking at the full kid.
We are, which is why. So if we
This
only
page
looked
should be
at-
this long with all the good stuff,
If
because
we only looked at the concerning things, this conversation would be a lot different.
yeah,
We
because
look
you
at
just
the full
accuse
student.
him of whatever without looking at him as a full student.
We look at the full student, and in Connor's case, that is why we don't think that he's a threat to anyone at this time, right? The supports that we have in place for Connor, right? We want him to talk with some of our teachers and be mentored by some of our teachers who are vets,
I
right?
think Mr. Salazar.
Yes.
They're military veterans. They can provide a lot of insight on their experience in the military and maybe try to shift that focus so much away from the weapons to other things as well, and not just.
And even when we were talking to her, I was like, it's the specs of it. He isn't like obsessed with bullets. He's obsessed with how things are made, and like what's the difference between this? Because I was telling her that like when he was younger, he knew the different dinosaurs and how many fingers they had and how much teeth they had and how the difference between how fast one could run. Like that's where his brain goes. So him looking up what he's looking up, not at school, is like me looking up baseball stats or stuff about puppies. It's what he's interested in.
But when he's doing it at school, that
That's-
raises the level of concern.
Exactly.
So
But then every single kid should not be looking at anything that they are interested in. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm comparing it to. Is it's not that he's like, oh, I need to know about all the guns. He's like, oh, how does this one go together? How does this? And it's all about the specs.
Just thinking of the world today.
The
right?
world today of him coming into his space and touching his stuff. The world today.
The world.
Not gonna fly, right?
The world today of, safety in schools.
He
Okay?
touched him.
Regardless of, like you have an interest in military weapons, right? Searching that on a school device.
Yes, that's
Right,
exactly.
searching that
Time and
at-
place, for sure.
Exactly. So that's where it raises concern in a school setting. We have to think of the school safety, school setting. In this world today, that's our reality. We have to take that seriously.
I know. And
take
I agree.
precautions.
That is the one thing that
So,
we agree with.
yes.
That we are on the same page on that. I'm not saying he's okay for looking anything up that wasn't school related at school. At all. Not even for a second. He understands this. He doesn't have a phone. He hasn't had the internet. This kid is in a bubble right now. Because we're gonna rewire how he looks at things. But the kid walked up to him, touched his computer, and then tried to boop him in the nose. What about the world we live in? That's okay? Because they're just boys. They're just little boys being boys. What's the repercussions of
I
that?
think at any point in time, just respecting people's space
Yeah.
is important.
Which would have
right? I
stopped
would
all
agree.
of this.
I would
Everything.
agree with that.
And again, the only thing that if there's a silver lining of this nonsense, is that we are looking deeper into what Connor may need some tweaking in.
Right.
Okay? 100% okay with that. And so glad that if there's anything that came from it.
Correct. In this
If
threat
it didn't
assessment-
happen though, if
Right.
the kid didn't come over, BSing with some other kid behind him, and then walked up, saw random letters from standing beside him, and then some kid in a room full of 20 kids, 15, 20 kids, said something to him loud enough to not even get the teacher's attention that was sitting right next to him. But the kid behind him heard him talking voice exactly what he said. Did the kid walk behind you and go back and talk to the other kid? Right? He went back to what he was doing. So I'm not understanding how this statement that you're saying that someone else said, maybe that's what he told him. He's like, oh yeah, that's what I heard. You know what I mean?
Understandable. And
It's plausible, and it's 100. You can't. It's just. This is so pointed at him. It's ridiculous.
we have to go based on the information that we have. And there's a difference in retelling a story that someone told you and retelling what you saw or experienced. And that was what we gathered from this student, and there's information we know about this student that helps us understand whether or not
What
we
was the
can
information?
tell a story. That's not something I can share with you because it's private information
course not.
about a student. But
Because the
With what-
parents said he's a good kid,
with
right?
what we know of this student, he wouldn't be able to coherently tell a story that someone else told him. And he didn't, and he wasn't saying like, oh yeah, I saw a gun, or he said he saw a gun, or this or that. It was just like, I was behind him. This kid touched his computer.
That's the only thing that's been corroborated.
Right. So that's what he told. That's what he told. It wasn't so and so told me, or he said this or that. This is what I saw. Didn't bring up anything else that was said by the other student in terms of he
Okay.
told me this or that. So it was what he experienced in that time.
So Connor yelled it loud enough for someone behind him to hear in a room full of kids doing nothing, their study hall stuff, so that they're not quiet.
I don't
But
know
the
how
teacher didn't
loud-
hear it.
I don't know how loud he spoke. But it was apparently loud enough that the student heard it also.
And the teacher did not. Saw zero interaction between the two and heard nothing. No other student heard anything.
And I don't know what the other students or the teacher were doing at the time. As Connor explained, they were all circled up in a group.
Being loud, talking, doing what kids do.
So, I mean, none of us were there. So we don't know for
So we
sure.
just take the words of the kid that is accusing him, the kid that he went immediately back to talk to, whether he said, hey, look, say this, but I'm not saying that, I don't know. But like, he could be like, oh man, he just did this and this and this, you know, like, and then go back to doing whatever. Because he didn't tell the teacher, he didn't tell leaving the classroom, he could have went straight to you or you. But no, he went home.
And in his narrative, he was afraid that if he told anyone, that Connor would get mad and that would put others in danger, and so he didn't know what to do, so he told his
And
mom.
in his defense, in his narrative, it was a blip. Nothing about this moment even made anything, because he said, get away from me or whatever. Like, I don't know what the words were, but I can tell you the way that he has been with us and even with the police. The very first day, we had zero information on what was going on. So I didn't sit there and be like, all right, Connor, you got to say this, got to say that. All of us were point blank, no idea what was going on. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. No idea. Because it meant nothing. Because he said, some kid touches stuff, which probably happens all the time, right? And boys will be boys. So it doesn't matter because they can just invade each other's space. And he said, told some kid to go away, which he probably has done however many times during a week, any given time, right? Because they just touch each other. So it didn't spark up this huge thing that was like, oh man, that's a big deal.
Connor, is this something that happens all the time?
Yeah, with me, yeah. Not many people like me.
You have a good friend group, right?
Yeah.
You listed.
Solid 3 or 4 friends,
Yeah.
really good friends that would die
Okay.
for me.
Okay. And that's important to have that, right? I've always told my kids, like, so long as you have one good friend, right? Who always has your back and they're there for you. They're not your friend one day and not the next.
Mhm.
So it's important that you have a good, solid friend group.
And so again, because I don't want to prolong, we don't think that Connor poses a threat.
I know. I'm aware of that.
We also want to ensure that we have measures in place so that that doesn't become even a temptation. Even if you're feeling that, things are happening, that people are bullying you or whatever, that's not something to resort to, right? That you have a healthy and viable option to get help, right? So that's what the RMS plan is about. It's not so much that we think just because of his interest in things, he's going to eventually do something bad to people. We don't want that to even be a thought in a stressful situation for him. Where if it's like these kids,
Someone's picking on him, invading his space. So you don't want him to
And
do an unhealthy reaction that isn't get away from me.
we're going to provide resources for him to express, like, this is what's going on. If things are happening, if kids are bothering him, like, when to talk to someone, one of the things that he's expressed is that
He talked to the
typically
kid that was
handles-
bothering him.
So he handles things on his own.
And then he gets accused of having a
You
gun.
guys express that he bottles things up, and so like between those two things, we don't want him to bottle things up, right? I know when I was a kid, if I didn't talk to somebody about something that was bugging me, and I would get angry at the smallest thing, and then I would end up getting in trouble, whether I'd be at home and tear up the whole house because I'm mad at my sisters, or get in a fight at school because this kid's been bugging me the whole time, and today I've just had enough. If I had someone to talk to, those things would not have escalated to the point where they did. And as an adult, learning that has been very healthy. When I'm upset, I know who I can call. And now, like, this is really bugging me, right? I'm not gonna quit my job because I'm frustrated with teachers not doing things, and I just don't have anybody to talk to about it. It's like I'm not gonna go to a drastic extreme. I'm gonna go to my healthy place where I know I have someone to call and talk about it, and then get some advice, some solid strategies to use. Like, how about you go talk to this teacher? Maybe they don't understand how to do what you're asking them to do, so go show them. Maybe they're not just being defiant. Maybe they're just like, I don't know how to do that. Not that I don't want to, but I need help. Coach me up. Like, those things where I've learned in my adult life, even with work, where it's just like, you know what, I'm fed up with this place, I quit. Like, no, don't get fed up. Learn how to.
He told the kid to go away.
Right.
That was him addressing it
But,
as it was happening.
but we've also learned that he bottles things up from you guys, right? And we don't.
And then we
Yeah,
talk about it.
You mentioned that.
We pull stuff out of him. We do, because we know that's what he does.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned that, Connor, in your interview too, that, you know, when you have questions, academic questions, right, you go and ask for help. But if there's things that are bothering you, you just deal with it on your own. You handle it on yourself,
Yeah.
right? And you know, there's support people here that can help you work through that as well, because sometimes trying to work it through, and I've done that myself, right? Work things out myself and such, it can be really hard, right? So we're saying that these particular things are available.
So it says that he has the student used or practiced with weapons? And no, he's never shot a gun before.
Well, he has knives, airsoft guns, based on what you guys told Ms. Rash. So we assume that he has used those in some way, whether it's to hunt, to go to airsoft camp. So those are also considered weapons. We're not just talking about guns. You know?
You've mentioned airsoft camp, right?
Because I know tactical strategy and know something about defending myself, being able to work in an environment that I am not known to, I am potentially dangerous. And because I have, and my knives, yes, they are knives, they are weapons, but they are belts, so you strap them onto my belt.
And it's like if you have a box or something.
Like, if
That's
you-
literally how
like-
he uses it.
I can't go to school with something that's on my belt because somebody's gonna see that. My dad's gonna say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And yes, some of them aren't belt, but either they're too small or they don't have a clip. And I can't
He
hide
doesn't-
that. And I'm also smarter than that.
Yeah, he's not gonna. He doesn't bring crap to school.
And because of the weapons that I have, airsoft guns, fake weapons, real weapons that are the real weapons that you are able to see just by looking at me, I'm a danger, correct?
No,
No.
honey,
No.
Okay.
you're fine, baby.
And that's not what we're saying at all, Connor. And that question is essentially what you just stated. You use these things, you practice with them, right? That's all that question is asking, is have you used or practiced with weapons? Even if you're doing it at home. We're not saying, and we're not just talking about guns there, right?
Yeah.
And we're not saying because you use or practice with weapons, you're going to bring them to school and hurt somebody, right? That's the answer. The question is simply asking if you use or practice with weapons. Okay?
That if I'm understanding this correctly, the fact that he has touched his toys and his tools that are considered weapons, he has a certain level of threat associated with him just because he has touched those things and he has played with those things.
It just has a
for
question on there.
clarification,
It's just asking the question whether he has used them or not. It's really a yes or a no.
But do you guys
So-
associate a level of threat if the answer is yes to that question?
Not necessarily, but it's the totality of things as well.
And then this one says, stalking behavior, and it says not that we are aware of, but then shouldn't that be a no? You said yes or no?
Well, we don't know. We don't know in his history if that's happened. Yeah, so it's just, if it's something that we haven't experienced, we don't know.
And again,
But we can't say if like in third grade something went down or something that we weren't aware of, right?
or
Like
if
it
there's
would
things
be,
happening on the weekends that
Yeah, we
none
don't-
of us know about. We don't know. So if we put no, that means we definitively,
Yeah.
just like if we put yes, we definitively know one way or the other. We're not, that's not that we're aware of. That doesn't mean that it probably is. It's just we're not aware of anything.
yeah.
And you'll see that answer for a lot of questions, like,
Because we just
We're not
don't have
aware.
that.
I feel like the the fact that we told you that he bottles things up is probably every 14-year-old boy. And it's not even to excess. When I say that he bottles things up, he just isn't one to show his emotions. Doesn't mean that this doesn't mean that he doesn't talk to us every single day, because he does.
But please know that, like, if something was happening at school that was, bothersome to you, right? There's a period of time where you're feeling frustrated over a peer group or something's going on, right? We have supports here to help with that, right? We want our students to feel comfortable, right? So just, that's what this is providing, is that opportunity. It's providing the supports we already have, just saying, if you're bottling some frustrations out here, there's help for you, okay? It's an outlet.
again, and it's very objective in terms of literally we are taking answers from questions that either we got information from you guys or Connor, and we're just answering the question objectively based on what we learned. So
Okay, Sam, you guys essentially made your conclusion. What is the path forward?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand you, Joe.
I said, since you've made your conclusion, what is the path forward?
So the path forward is we want Connor to return to school, and we have I've spoken about the RMS plan. It's a response management and support plan, and I'm gonna give Victoria 2 copies of that also. Hold on. So with this plan, we will have some supports in place for Connor. Upon returning to school, there'll be a few things. Let me just open up my copy here so that I can go over this with you guys.
I'm gonna tear up your fingers.
Okay, and again, the first section is just a summary of why the RMS plan is being put into place and why the threat assessment was done. It's the same summary, literally copied and pasted from the threat assessment document. The first section talks about steps that were taken. There was no need for any medical response. In terms of law enforcement involvement, even though law enforcement did come to your homes and do home checks and things like that, there are no criminal charges of any kind. But law enforcement involvement was doing the home visit and the interview. There's no, for child abuse reports or suicide assessment, anything like that.
And just to be fair, the search of everything was done before this was started.
Right. It was part of that process. That's having the police officers come to the home and do a well check is part of that beginning process of that threat screen. So that's protocol. Anytime that there is a report of a threat, that's the response that the police are gonna do. So if anything, if a kindergartner says, I'm gonna stab you in the face, they're going to kindergartner's house.
So the schools have a higher, like, the Fourth Amendment doesn't mean anything if a school says it, that you can search their house? There's no reasonable search and seizure but as long as the school says it? I'm just curious, like, that's interesting to me.
The Fourth Amendment doesn't apply if the homeowner consents to the search.
Well, they said we need to search his room for this assessment.
And you could have very well said no. That's
How do I know that? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like the school is like, they're starting a process or whatever they have to do. Like, that's what I'm saying is like, it wasn't presented as, hey, you have the option to say no, but this is gonna be part of the assessment. It wasn't like that. Per the assessment, we need to look at his room, is what we were told, or as I was told.
However that was communicated is on the police department, not us. We don't tell them, we just say, hey, we have this report, can you go do a well check? And that's our verbiage, it's a well check, not a search of the home, it's a well check.
Okay.
Whenever there's a weapon involved, they will ask to search, and if the search is not consented, then to be transparent, we treat it as though that there is a weapon present and that there's.
So if I would have said no, then you would have assumed that there was a weapon.
Mhm.
So there really wasn't an option of saying no.
There is an option to say
No, there's not,
but
because you would have immediately.
we still would have to go through this
The exact
process
same process,
and to find out, right? And because you said no at that point, all that says is like they wouldn't let us search the house, so we don't know whether or not the kid had a weapon, and so
You just said you would assume that there was one.
right. So when I say that, it's not assuming like, oh yes, there was a weapon, but it's from a safety perspective, not knowing whether or not a kid has a weapon because we're not able to search means that we can't allow that student back in the building until we have confirmation that there is not a weapon. And so if you had said no, you can't search.
He'd be arrested because you'd assume that he had a gun.
We couldn't arrest him. We couldn't arrest him on that.
Well, you can expel him on that.
Couldn't expel him either. All we could do is say, until we are able to confirm there was no weapon, Connor may not return to school, and we would go through it. Nothing different would have happened, right? He wasn't able to return to school for that period of time while we did the threat assessment. Nothing different would have happened. However, allowing the police to do the search to confirm that there is no weapon is very helpful in the threat assessment process. Not allowing it hinders the process and prolongs it, and no matter what, if we can't confirm that he brought a weapon to school, we can't expel him or file criminal charges, right? Like that at that point, reasonable suspicion for that, like we have to have a lot more evidence to state it is more likely than not that he brought a weapon to school.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like we have to search his locker, and maybe we found a shell casing.
But you didn't. So this maybes is really,
But
all
again,
about stories, but.
we're not at all stating that we believe Connor brought a weapon to school.
Because he didn't, and that's
So
not a thing.
So this just kind of goes through like the process of putting together an RMS plan, and kind of who's doing what and what details. And so, you'll see here under section,
And so there's gonna be a protection order between the kids, right? Like they can't interact with each other. So that doesn't mean not him, just against him, it's gonna be against both of them. So if this kid comes and starts talking crap to him,
Correct.
which there better be something done about him invading his space and starting all of this in the first place.
so going back to the.
Is that-
We,
no.
and we can't share any kind of consequences with any other student, right?
Are you sharing the consequences with the other kid, with him?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The
But-
only thing that would be is a no contact contract between the two of them. They can't be in contact with one another. So absolutely, that other individual is not allowed to know anything.
They don't even know this.
No.
Like, they're,
If they have a class together, how will that work?
We will need to change that, so.
And he's gonna
that
have to leave the class
We're
that he
gonna
loves.
actually have one student leave one and go to a different one and one do the other. So it's not, that way it's 50-50.
Okay, I would like to see that.
I didn't hear him.
I
What was
think
that?
he's talking to someone else.
Okay,
He's working.
got it.
so when you look at number 2, code of conduct, check, disciplinary action taken. So we elected not to count the 6 days as suspension. It's
Yeah.
excused absences. And the reason why we elected that is one, there's no confirmation of a weapon. Typically, when a student makes a threat, we do suspend.
Is
them.
accused of
Is
making
accused
a
of
threat.
making a threat, yes. We suspend them while we do the threat assessment process. And then once we complete the process, we can choose whether or not that suspension stays a suspension or if it moves into expulsion based on what we find.
But we
And
didn't
so
do
we
that. It
elected
was
not
excused
to
the whole way through.
Suspend Connor.
And did you see on his school life thing that Mr. Temperman gave him points for being on task on Friday of last week?
Wait.
Yeah. While he's not even there,
On
he's still
Friday,
getting.
oh.
He may have done a
Probably a
whole
whole
class.
class thing.
Sometimes our
But you would only
teachers will
see
do a whole
his,
class, yeah.
what they do is the whole class will get.
Everyone's on task. Great job, everyone.
So,
Which he's done all of his homework, so it really does include him. So it's not to say, oh, just not everyone else but Connor.
So intervention and skill building, Connor will meet weekly with our mental health team, just to strategize and do some social emotional skill building. Ms. Rash, would you want to explain kind of what that would entail?
Which one is this?
Oh,
Where are we at
number
here?
three.
Under number 3.
Under 3, under interventions.
And what's in parentheses too is just, those are examples.
Yeah, so anger management, communication, conflict resolution. People are picking on you, where to go. Yeah. Not bottling things up.
Down below there, just a few lines, you see the other boxes checked, assign staff member to build a trusting relationship. Connor has expressed that he has a really good rapport with Mr. Salazar and that he has a good relationship, and we want to make sure that continues. Mr. Salazar also being a veteran, is a good person to talk to about, the military and kind of all that entails and different things like that as well. He's also expressed that Connor has a very, very deep wealth of knowledge about Greek mythology, so much so that he allowed Connor to teach a class period. And that he,
When was that?
This was 7th grade. We did a word search.
Okay. I mean, that
And
could
we
have,
went
I would
over it.
love to found that, you know what I mean? Like, that's a good call home. Hey, he's doing great. And it's all, I mean, I get it, there's 1,000 kids, but.
in addition to that, Connor weekly, would like for you to have lunch with Mr. Salazar once a week to continue building that relationship as well. With some restrictions, you'll get to pick the days, and what I mean by that, on the days when Mr. Salazar has lunch duty, obviously he can't be. But the other 3 days during the week, you and him can decide on what day.
something.
But to my knowledge of Mr. Salazar telling me he has not been in active duty in, or as of what I've read or heard it as, the bush.
This is he's a long time ago, buddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe he was a firefighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's worn a lot of hats. He's very wise individual.
Moving down to management strategies, again, checking in with the trusted adult. That will be Mr. Salazar, and again, that will be that lunchtime. Daily check-in with an administrator. So one of the 4 members of our leadership team, myself, Mr. Lopez, Ms. S, or Ms. Kerr, each morning. So that will require that you enter, because you walk to school still, right?
Yes.
Okay, so rather than lining up on the blacktop, you will come through the front door and check in with one of us.
And you're gonna search him?
We also will do daily searches, as well as random searches that will not be announced. In addition to that, Connor will not be allowed to have a backpack, just so that we can ensure that there are, we don't want to have to go through his backpack every day.
For not having any proof of really any of this, minus hearsay, you're doing an awful lot to make it look like he did.
It's restrictive due to his access to weapons. Again, we want to ensure that the temptation doesn't even arise.
Everything can go into a safe. I don't care. He can lose everything at home. But this is, oh my God, for it not happening, I just don't.
We're not controlling what we do at home. That's not happening. So can he bring a lunchbox?
Yes, he
Is
can.
that
Yes.
out
He
of
can
order
still bring his
too?
lunchbox.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just the backpack he cannot bring?
Yep.
And it says victim considerations,
The
modified
compromise
daily
is that
schedule.
Clear backpack,
That's-
just no backpack,
That's
period?
the 9th period. So
But it says victim.
Switching.
He is the one that it started. He started it with Connor. So who is?
Again, please remember, we did not create
And
this
we,
force.
yes, right, so that's not our.
Well, I'm trying to
verbiage.
point out all the things that are so biased about this, that the fact that the kid that touched him came into his space,
So
started everything.
I hear you continue to say the kid touched him, and based on Connor's words, it was attempted.
Attempted. I'm sorry if someone does this and I move my head back.
No, he did touch me.
Okay, so in your statement, you said he tried to.
He tried and successfully did.
So that was not in your statement. We're not gonna. That's neither here or there right now. We're not gonna.
We're not going to add that. Oh my God. Oh my God. But we can add that there's new details to a weapon. That he saw a weapon that was clearly from the side. That you could see the serial numbers and all this other stuff. But we can add that later on.
So we're
We
gonna
could certainly
Oh my
add that
God.
in our notes, and then it doesn't change the results, but we could add that
Then
you
again,
confirmed that.
we want that investigated. We would like this to, the fact that this kid came into his space. None of this would have happened. We wouldn't be here if that didn't happen.
I think what,
And I think what happened was that 2 kids were messing around. One kid said, "Hey, well, watch this." Goes and messes with him. Connor sticks up for himself, and the other kid's like, "Oh, why didn't you do something about it?" You know what I mean? Like, that's where I think this whole thing came from.
I think something that's being forgotten through this, had this not happened, right? We wouldn't have done this deep dive per the requirement of this. Okay, and we found concerning searches. We found things that in a school setting, we need to be cautious of
Exactly.
through the process. So that's what puts this into place.
But the backpack searches is not about your internet searches.
It contributes to that with the knife search and the emoji.
That you didn't,
search.
that wasn't really an issue back in August.
Alone, it wasn't. And especially because my conversation with Connor and with you confirmed that he wanted a hunting knife and that he was looking up. That's why he was looking it up. And so at that time, the knife search alone did not raise.
But because he was looking for a
This
gun
level.
emoji, like they look the stupidest crap.
Well, that's, again, that sets a different tone with the search of, am I sending this emoji to someone, and then that's me taken as a threat?
It was pointing at his own head. Like that's where I would get more concerned about that because that's the stupidest emoji I've ever seen in my life.
Still, if he were to text that or chat that to someone, that could be considered a threat. So
There's a lot of, it could be or could be perceived as, it's a lot of conjecture and.
but the fact is he did do the search.
A very excessive response.
So he did do the search.
So, okay. Gonna have backpack searches, no backpack.
No backpack.
No backpack. We have to have lunch with the teacher. You guys are going to check in with them every day, so a daily
To search him. By the police every single day.
Nobody.
It says police have to be included, so there's going to be a cop standing
They'll be
by.
aware.
They'll be aware of the search. Like, so going back to, a few years ago. With
Law enforcement must be present for all searches involving
Yes,
weapons.
but we will do the search. Law enforcement will not.
be.
They will be present, which means that.
That
our
it's
SRO
someone looking in can see like Connor's getting searched around the police involvement. Yes, it's all about perception, right?
No one will see.
This moving my shoulder is a perception of lifting up my shirt from someone standing directly behind me.
So the search will be done in a private office.
Just relax, buddy. You're good.
No other students, teachers will ever see.
He has had zero
Or no.
interaction with police ever. Like this is the first time ever.
And he's not in any legal trouble.
I know. And nor should he be. It shouldn't even be a question, but like all of this is like geared to as if he did do everything that you guys are saying he did. This is and
Increased supervision, and this is more so to ensure that the two of them are not in proximity or communicating with each other. So teachers being more aware in settings like recess, passing periods, to make sure that Connor and the
Recess
other
lunch.
student are not.
what about like friends of friends talking shit or whatever?
Well, if
Is that
comes
okay?
about, let us know.
Yeah.
And we will handle that.
Because apparently, from what
On
you know,
either side, that cannot.
No,
we
absolutely
have-
not.
We have no contact contracts with other students in this building. And there have been situations where kids will try to go through others. We stop that. But we have to know. We have to know what's happening. We can't, if we don't
so
know.
from now on, he's just going to stand up and say, "Hey, this guy's talking shit to me right now." Like, because that's the only way I feel like this is ever going to get.
Come to us. Come down to us. Any of us. Please.
How is speaking to a teacher better than telling a child to leave you alone? I don't understand how directly addressing the conflict immediately from peer to peer is frowned upon compared to telling the teacher as opposed to just addressing the situation. You guys cannot prove that he threatened this kid. You can't. So let's assume that an event did happen and he told the kid to go away. How is that worse than going and telling the teacher? If you ask me, telling somebody to stop and addressing it immediately is far less escalated than taking it to
Especially since the kid immediately walked away after immediately walking up to him for nothing.
Okay. Please continue.
Around 5'8", around 5'8", okay.
Is that the completion?
Yeah, that was the last thing was monitoring and restricting online presence. And again, now, because we are aware that our system has not diligently filtered and sent
Everything we
alerts
need.
to everything, I will be personally pulling data each week. And if I find anything of concern, you two will be the first to know.
And are we also pulling individual about, I don't trust this kid. I'm sorry. I think that this has been a malicious, he got told to sit the F down, and the kid got offended and got all uppity and then made up a story. That's what I think happened. So what about that? And now that I am telling you to investigate the fact that he touched him and touched his computer.
Well, and just like what we were sharing before, we aren't sharing, we cannot share with that individual's parents what's transpiring here. So nor can we share what would transpire for the other student.
But
The
we are
only
making the
thing-
complaint right now. And I did it on Friday. I said, I'd like you to investigate that. So,
And the only thing what we can share, and that's a frustrating thing, like I believe I shared this story with my own child where my child in his high school setting was named in a classroom on a list with an individual who wore a ski mask and said time, place, weapon, all of these things. I never heard what happened to that other student. I never heard whether or not that student was allowed to still remain at school. I heard nothing. I heard that we're handling it because, and I understand now in my role as an administrator, I legally can't know that information. However, as a parent, I'm pissed, right?
Yeah.
But there's laws that provide protections. Okay, so I understand your frustration. I'm with you. I get it. But we're not sharing with other parent what's happening. We can't share on the other end. What we can share in this is that we are going to make a change to that 9th period. One elective will change for you. One elective will change for the other individual.
do they get to pick?
And then there's a no contact contract. That I can share because it involves both of you. Okay. So what I'm sharing is, I get it. I've been there. I've been there.
And
to
that's
a point
way
where there was
worse.
a-
That's way worse.
Exactly, and I didn't know. Right, exactly, and I understand. Like for them, speaking to the dean of students in that situation, I'm hearing as a parent and an administrator, right, what's shared, and I'm like, okay, I understand you can't share it. I understand, but I want to feel comforted that my child can come to school tomorrow. His name was on a list, right? I couldn't, we're taking care of it, your child's safe. I had to take their word, I had to trust. That's all I had because of the legal protections of confidentiality for students. As an administrator, I understand.
There's no
it.
confidentiality for Gunnar. That everyone knows.
I can.
I know it didn't come from you, but everyone
Absolutely
knows.
not. Absolutely not.
What gets spread around is speculation, right? Even if the other kid told other people, even if his friends that he told are telling other people, they don't know facts.
No duh.
They don't
And that's
know-
going to come hard on him because it's going to be that the fact that the first report was hearsay. The first report was 3 stories deep, right? Kid, friend, mom. So, I don't understand.
Well, and thinking of it this way, Connor being at school should say something. It should tell if there are any students who are wondering things, right? That should say something positive. Okay? Now, if individuals are asking you questions or you hear different talk, come to us. We'll shut it down. Okay? Absolutely.
So with that, that's the RMS plan. So again, just recapping, we have the mental health support, the check-ins with Mr. Salazar, the check-ins with our leadership team, the entering the front door. You don't have to leave through the front door in the afternoons. Go like you normally go after school. Just coming in the mornings to the front door. The internet monitoring, this search, and how we will do that is Connor will search himself in our presence. We're not touching him. He will empty his own pockets. He will do a pat down, show us his waistline. He will show us the socks, different things. If he's wearing a jacket, he'll take off the jacket, shake it. We will also have to look in the lunchbox, but outside of that, that's the extent of the search that we will do. Where Connor will essentially search himself in our presence, so we won't touch him at all. Am I forgetting anything?
I don't believe so.
And so things will go into effect tomorrow morning. So Connor will be allowed to return to school tomorrow morning, just as long as we all agree that.
We don't agree. No.
So,
I don't understand how the searches and all that stuff. I get the internet searches, that one, how about it? But all of these physical searches for something that didn't happen, that you couldn't prove.
it's more so to disprove, to disprove. Like
we don't have the proof of disproving it. It's the kid that accused him.
But remember, it's not so much, I think the focus is on the what did or did not happen, right? And that's the unknown. Where the focus, like throughout the whole process, you need to look at particular things. And we go through these strict questions, prescribed questions, answer yes, no, what have you. Within all of that process, there have been concerning searches, right?
Because of something that didn't happen.
But the searches happened.
The searches did, yes.
Happened.
That because of the firewall being malfunctioned or not the correct rules settings, and then wasn't flagged in the first place.
Those things are, that's concerning to search those things.
Even if it were blocked.
Yeah.
Even if the firewall did its job, it would still be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like why are you trying to access this information?
So then you talk to him every single time there was a blocked
So had this been, let's say for example,
flag or whatever?
had this been like the knife search gun emoji, and you were aware of that at the time, the gun emoji, okay? There would have been a process. There would have been a threat assessment screener at the very least that would have gone, because there would have been a double. I'm searching one thing, I'm searching another. There's a theme. In a school setting, we have to follow that process. So with that said, with concerning searches, we would be here anyways.
Okay, so I understand that. Again, my question.
Beginning of the year,
Go ahead, Joe.
it would have been in August. And we would not be here. We would be in a very, very different conversation, please. And if you guys are willing to say that search history are somehow comparable to actual physical threats with a weapon, then I think that you guys really
It
need
would
to
have
look
been
at
the same
processes and
process.
policies, because I feel like those are very substantially, significantly different threat levels.
I agree, but the process is the same. We have to follow the same process.
That's a flaw. That's a flaw. And who do we talk to about that? Because
Uh,
I have footnotes.
And I wrote down our charter liaison at the district,
Thank you.
and shared that you guys were interested in speaking with the district, so she's awaiting your call or email. So that's her contact info.
Okay.
And then go ahead and ask your question again, Victoria.
Oh, I have ADHD. It's gone.
It was something pertaining to blocked searches.
Oh, okay. So every single, and that's how I remember random things. So because I just the short 3 months, December, January, February, whatever of what I could see of his stuff, there was so many blocked sites, so many. So you're telling me that every single time that any student hits up a blocked site, that it's sending you a flag?
If it's for certain things. Sometimes it's they're trying to play games.
And that's what he was
we
doing.
see a pattern of that. Like we do talk to students like, hey, I see you've attempted several times to try to go to this gaming site, even though it's blocked, you're still trying to do it, which means you're not doing your work in school. And if this continues, there are going to be consequences. And sometimes kids have lost their Chromebook
You bet.
because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So just because it's
And been
blocked,
engaged in searches.
Yeah.
I want to be clear. This is not only Connor.
yeah.
No, I know this isn't just a Connor Perry thing. I know
Right,
that.
Right, but you guys would know that those kinds of things take place here, right? Because it's privacy.
Yeah.
So I just,
But we didn't. I mean,
But I
with the
don't- I
search
also
history, if it
don't
was
get-
such a big deal.
I don't get an alert for every block site. It's certain keywords.
Okay, then that was my question because I saw a bunch of them that were blocked,
Yeah.
and
An
that so
example,
then your
too-
screen would have been. Bling, 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 bling.
and an example too, like, so mental health will get a flag if someone types in, I want to kill myself. How do I kill myself, right? So clearly, to keep our students safe, there are particular keywords that'll go bloop, and then the necessary individuals will get a message.
And what I do is I go and I look at, our system keeps a tab of like everything that was blocked and unblocked and different things. And I go because we do have an issue with gaming. Like kids want to play games all the time. And so I have to continue to monitor what our kids are searching in general. And so I have a list of the top blocked sites that I get a report for every day. And I do look at that every day. And it's, a lot of it is unblocked games is to search, and that's blocked. So sometimes they get
They're trying to
around it.
navigate. Sometimes they're successful and can navigate. Kids are very tech savvy.
But like those things don't necessarily trigger a response for concerning. It's, I'll look at like they'll have this one site that's like the top block site, and I'll look and I'll see like, okay, who's all going? And I'll see it's a bunch of kids in all the grades. I'm like, okay, this is a school-wide thing. All these kids are trying to play this game. Then send
What
it
is
to
the game?
teachers like, hey, be vigilant, because our teachers have the ability to monitor their screens in real time. Be vigilant. Kids are trying to play games. This site is blocked, but majority of students this week have tried to look at this site, so just be vigilant. And to be honest, it's not just our middle school kids. Like sometimes we have fourth graders that are trying to play, Fortnite, and they don't know they can't go to Fortnite at school, so they're just trying to go to Fortnite and it's blocked, right? I'm not necessarily concerned about that search for a fourth grader trying to play Fortnite, or even an eighth grader trying to play Fortnite. From a safety perspective, it's more so, stop trying to play games and do your work. That's not what this computer is for. But if I see certain things in search history, or if I'm seeing, how do you commit suicide, or can you die from ingesting certain stuff? I see things like that. Those are the things that are alarming. And like I said, we've had it set up to where those certain keywords, we get an alert, an email. For whatever reason, we have not been getting those alerts, and I don't know why. And so we have our IT team looking into that. But I do look every day, and I haven't been seeing those kind of things. Once she would know, he would know, they would all know. And those are things that when I look daily at our report for top searches, top blog sites, those things aren't coming up. To look at an individual kid to see what they're searching,
You can see
530 kids. So to do that for every kid every day, that's gonna take me a week to do it alone. And so essentially we depend on our system to send those alerts, so that then we become aware of these kids, which is what happened in Connor's case. The knife search made me aware. At the time I was concerned, and after I spoke with the two of you about it, and I was like, okay, I feel better about that he was looking for a hunting knife. And again, I will be completely transparent with you, Victoria. The reason I can say I felt better about it, because I've known Connor since he got here. I had no reason to be concerned about anything. So even at that moment, it's like, okay, I'm gonna monitor this to make sure this doesn't continue. And because I have not gotten any further alerts about any type of searches pertaining to weapons, I hadn't been concerned. And so I know Connor's a good kid,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the knife thing, like, if there was anything that had happened prior to that, that conversation would have been a lot different and that would have been handled a lot differently. But at that time, the kid that I knew that Connor was like, all right, he had a really good explanation. Mom corroborated his explanation. I feel okay about it. Had I seen that gun emoji search, it would have been different because there's a pattern. So,
And this is what we're trained, right? Like, we are trained to be vigilant. We are trained to be aware if there are patterns, and we are trained to follow this. And this is all of Adams County, follows this exact process. So that's beyond our,
and this was developed as a result of, one, the Claire Davis Act, as well as the Colorado Safe Schools Act. So this is, by law, the process that we have to follow.
Oh, jeez. Nails.
Right here.
At the end. Yeah, so the very end in the signature area of the RMS plan, it states how the form was developed, and then the different districts that are involved with this particular form, and then adapted from U.S. Department of Secret Services, FBI, U.S. Department of Ed, and the Colorado Safety Resource Center. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes into this, and we are bound by it.
Get off your fingers. They're gonna fall off. I can't get past that if someone didn't invade his space and didn't start everything, that we wouldn't be here. And the silver lining, I get that we are fixing
Right.
Connor, I get that, or adjusting or whatever.
Just giving support.
Yes, more support for him,
Support.
but the fact that there's still backpack searches, physical searches, that I just can't get past that.
I'd like to pose a question for you guys. If Connor was on the other side and we were doing all of this for the other kid,
That is what's happening right now. I feel like that this kid's word is being taken like it's,
so,
you know.
So reverse the roles. How would you feel being the parent of Connor if the roles were reversed and we weren't doing all of this?
I'm not saying doing all this. An investigation, I am not, it is what it is. Because you can't say those words, do those things in a really public setting anyways. Not against that. Against the fact that nothing was found and that he's still being punished for it.
And we see it as more support.
But this is going to stay with him.
Yes, it is.
And it involves
And talk
physical
more-
searches.
And talk more with Kenlon about that, Kenlon Newman, regarding the district requirements with that.
I think in the big picture, what we all can agree on is that we can support Connor here, and regardless of what has happened with this situation, with the internet searches, there is a positive path forward for Connor, and he has a lot of support from people. We care deeply about him and his success, and although this is difficult, it's difficult for all of us. The way we are looking at this is a way to support your son. None of these measures are being done from a punitive perspective, and I understand how it can be perceived as, well, he has to be searched and he has to check in with people, but these are ways to support him in that. And additionally, there's possibility that some of these restrictions can be loosened over time. Right? We can't control the flag. That's on the.
So what does it say next to the caveat next to the flag?
It only says safety, and there are kids that have safety flags because they can't be picked up by certain individuals.
So then how do you know the difference?
You have to really look, and there are only certain people with access to that. So teachers can only see the flag.
Yeah, they don't
They
know.
don't know why. And I often get asked, I got this new kid that has a safety flag, what's going on with that? There's nothing you need to be concerned about. Is the response.
So then when a teacher goes to you and says, what's the flag for him, and what do you say?
Nothing you need to be concerned about.
I feel like the weapon that's what you're looking for, right? How is that not something that someone would need to be worried about?
If it was something that, and so the reason why I would say to a teacher is nothing you need to be concerned about. He's
Because,
coming in every day, he's
Yep.
getting searched. We know he doesn't have a weapon.
and then he's doing the
I'm doing the
internet searches. That's not on a teacher.
They don't need to
So,
be concerned
Yeah,
about it.
because it's taken
right?
care of.
And that reassures them that it is safe for this student to be in our school, and if it wasn't, they wouldn't be here. And we've had kids come from other schools where they have a flag. We have to call the other school and understand why they have a flag. Otherwise, you don't get into Bell Creek unless we know what that flag means. And
Okay, then
sometimes-
when you go, say you're getting a brand new student, no idea, comes with this flag, you look it up, what does it say?
We will have to be transparent about the process, but we will also say there was no weapon found on the student, right? There was a report of a threat, and we had to go through the process. And so, and all the other school districts know that if there's a flag and a kid at least got a screener, they're gonna get a flag. So all we have to tell them is that, oh yeah, the student went through the threat assessment process.
A kindergartner, for example, a kindergartner says, I want to kill you to another student. They at minimum have a screener and they have a flag. That's beyond our control.
And then it says the word, like it says the story of what happened.
No, it has
doesn't.
safety.
They have to call us to get
Yeah.
that information.
And that's what I'm asking,
What we share-
is when you dig, what does it say?
What we share with them is the student went through the threat assessment protocol. There was a report made, and that the student
About internet searches then, this is where we're at, is the flag will be about the internet searches.
The flag is due to the fact that the report was made, and we had to enact this threat screen. Even without the internet searches, even without anything else.
So if it came that he didn't do anything, he's flagged.
That is something we don't have
We
any
don't have control
over.
over. And I understand the frustration there.
That's,
And talk to Miss Newman about that.
You're good, baby, don't worry about it.
so even without the internet searches, let's just say the only thing was that a kid said, this kid threatened me, and they said they're gonna do this. So let's take Connor out of the situation. We're gonna go third party. A kid comes and says, this kid said that after school they're gonna shoot me. We do a screener. We find out that the kid did say that.
What about when you find out that he didn't?
Okay, so
Screener still has to.
we still have to do the screening, right? Let's say we find out the kid did say, I'm gonna get you after school, but it didn't say shoot. He just said, I'm gonna get you after school. Still a threat, but he didn't say shoot, right? And we find that out, and we do the whole process, we investigate, and then the kid that made the report comes back and says, oh yeah, he said get, but like, I was scared, so I thought that meant shoot, because he has a cousin that's in a gang or whatever, right? So it's not a false report, but it was like, it wasn't accurate. The information that was reported wasn't accurate. Because we did a screener on that kid that said, I'm gonna get you after school, he's still gonna get flagged. The district is gonna.
Oh yeah,
Let's
that's
be
fair.
honest.
If there was a threat, whatever.
Right.
Now, let's do the other side of it, where kid legitimately was like making stuff up. Does the one that gets accused of it still have the flag?
Yes.
That's what is blowing my brain right now.
That's something we don't have control over.
Right.
If
And
we
I
get a
understand your
report,
frustration there, absolutely, I understand.
There's no
But that's beyond
due
our.
process in any of this.
That's beyond our control.
And here's and I hear you. Here's the due process is us going through the investigation. So like the way that the law looks at due process for us is we have to do our investigation to find out what happened prior to giving consequences.
But you would have suspended another different kid immediately. So is that not consequences?
So the suspension is if there was a report that a kid made a threat, they can't be at school while we investigate for safety reasons to ensure, right? Like we have to know, like for example, if someone says this kid has a gun, right? They're in their car, they got a gun, right? We can't let that kid in the building, even though we don't know for sure whether or not they have a gun. Let's say they heard that somebody reported that they have a gun, they're like, I'm going home, right? We still have to go through that process, right? And then that kid's at home, we have to call his parents and say, hey, it was reported that your student had a gun and it was in his car. When our SRO went out to the parking lot, his car was gone. We don't know if he has a gun or not, but until we can confirm that, he may not come back to school. And we have to do the threat assessment protocol to ensure that, you know.
And I completely understand that. Completely understand that.
Now, let's say he didn't have a gun.
And the guy was just being a malicious jackass.
He had a phone, and they just saw something black, and they were like, "Oh, it's a
And maybe
gun."
because the guy had, like, any type of bumper stickers, and that's why he was targeted. Would anything happen to that kid?
for
the
for
accuser.
deliberately making a false report, but that would mean that it was made up. In a situation like this, it's not a deliberate false report. It was the
In
interaction
a
happened.
situation of this, is that nothing can be proved that anything was even said. I'm
That
sorry.
That doesn't make it a false report. A false report would be something like, I completely made up everything, right? So I'm going to say that this kid just said he's going to shoot up the school tomorrow. And I'm only saying that because I don't like this kid.
How do we know that's why he didn't say it about
And
him?
he's, maybe he's a quiet kid or whatever, and I'm just gonna tell everybody like, hey, that kid's gonna shoot up the school tomorrow. Maybe I'm not saying he said it. I'm just saying that kid's gonna shoot up the school tomorrow because he's quiet. He doesn't talk to anybody, and I go around telling that to everyone, and then the rumor spreads. It gets to the office. We have to go through the threat assessment protocol, and then we come back and we interview all the students, and they're like, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this, so-and-so told us this, and then we get back and it's like, okay, all these people are saying they heard this from you. What exactly? Oh, well, he was just sitting over there by himself, quiet and everything, so I was just kind of like joking, and I said, he's gonna shoot up the school tomorrow, but I didn't mean it. That's a false report. That enacted that protocol, it caused uproar, it caused fear. That kid's in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So the kid was doing nothing, and someone just decides to intervene in their life, but they would still get the flag.
Yes. And again,
I'm just trying to
I know.
verbalize
And-
how this sounds. It's ridiculous.
if we had the capability to control
Sit up, please.
whether or not the flag goes, there would be situations where kids wouldn't have flags. But we don't.
Yeah.
And what I mean
So
by
instead of like innocent and proven guilty, you're like everyone's guilty until we can figure out if you're innocent.
well, the flag just states that this student went through the threat assessment protocol. It's not that they did anything. It's not that they were guilty of anything.
But it'll say what he was
The
accused
protocol
of, which is to have a weapon.
It won't say.
That's what I'm asking you. What is it when you dig and you
I
pull it
just-
up?
Yes, like they have to call the school and ask, why does the kid have a safety flag? If another school, so if he goes to school in the district, they're gonna already know.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have all that information anyway, right? They will still call us to get clarification on the situation. I can tell you this. Where we are right now, if nothing else transpires this year, Carnival will have no problem going to any other school in the district. at all with where we are right now. If something were to happen related to, and not related to this particular situation, but related to weapons or threats or anything like that,
I understand that he's, you know, on a
What?
slippery slope at this point because of what someone else
Yeah.
said.
right now, the flag just alerts the other schools that, hey, you know, there's something to be aware of. The RMS plan will follow him, the threat assessment will follow him to any school in the district, right? It is up to whatever high school he goes to next year, it's up to them of how they will respond to the flag in terms of, will he be on an RMS plan? Well, part of that is, how did he do for the rest of the year for you guys, right? And he was very successful. We didn't have any further issues with any searches or anything like that. It's likely that he won't start the year at high school on an RMS plan, right?
We can say
can't
that
say
for
that
certainty,
for
it's
sure.
up to
It's
the
up to
school,
them.
but
So,
that would be great, there's no further searches, right?
and if they're like, you know, even if there's a period of time where he gets to graduate out of some of the pieces of the RMS plan, we can say like, we stopped doing this particular intervention at this point in the year. He was still successful even though we were not, you know, let's say I stopped monitoring his internet history weekly and I just trust him. And then I pull it periodically to see, and they're still, and I'm like, oh, I stopped monitoring full time on a weekly basis in April. From April 15th through May 23rd, there were no issues, even though he knew that I wasn't monitoring it anymore. There were no issues. So like with that, they're like, okay, then we don't need to do that, right? But we don't know what they will decide, right? But the district will already be in the know. Like they're in the know right now. So going out of district, they will call, and it will be the same conversation of this was the threat assessment protocol for this student. These were the parameters of the RMS plan. It was successful or it wasn't successful, and then they get to decide with that what they want to do. Right? So if they decide, you know what, your RMS plan wasn't strict enough, we'll put them on a stricter plan, but we'll accept them, right? So it's up to the other school. But I can say that there is no school in the district at this point. If Connor had to go to high school tomorrow, he would still go to any school in the district. This plan would follow if it was tomorrow, obviously, but he has time. I mean, we're not to March yet, right? So we have March, April, and May, essentially almost 90 days. He has time for this to also turn out to be a positive for him in that regard, because they're gonna know, they're gonna see the flag. District schools are gonna have the capability to go into EduClimber and look at the threat.
Which is our data warehouse,
Right.
where we
They're-
create the plan.
They're gonna call us to see how the RMS plan worked. They're gonna comb through it and see like, you know, you guys were doing this, how did that work out? If he's successful, they're probably not going to have as restrictive an RMS plan, even if he still is on one. So,
That's really cool. Sorry.
so there's not going to be a hindrance to him continuing his education. And here's probably the best news about the whole thing is leaving here and going to high school, to a new school. Even though on paper this follows him, no one knows Connor in high school. Those kids in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade don't know anything about the situation. And our school is small enough, and they spread out to all the different high schools. So even the handful of kids that will go to the same high school as him, if he goes to school in district, if he sees them.
Right. And I can attest to that, my
So-
child being in a district school.
You know, and
You think you're gonna be seeing your friends, and there's many more, thousands.
if he were to go out of district, then it's not likely that he'll go to school with anybody he went to middle school with. So the reputation won't follow him, even though on paper the flag will. Yes, the deans and the principal and APs at whatever high school are gonna be aware, but that doesn't mean they're gonna treat him like a kid that's dangerous. Right? If anything, they're looking like, okay, how can we support this kid from the start, right? And that's really what it boils down to. And so from a district perspective with the flag, like I can see both sides. I can see making sure that schools are informed so they can support kids, even if it was just a screener, even if nothing happened. It's like, okay, there probably still was a antecedent, like unless it was completely false and made up story that some kid just decided, I want to get somebody in trouble today, so I'm going to say they did or said something. Unless that
He invaded
situation,
his space, though.
then like there's probably an antecedent, whether it's, you know, this kid could really benefit from conflict resolution skills. This kid could benefit from social skills or being in a social group. This kid could benefit from having a mentor. And it might not always be, you know, we need to search this kid every day. We need to monitor their internet history. It's how do we support this kid, right? And, you know, I see it from that side, but I also see like if a kid did nothing and it's proven that they did nothing, then why does that have to follow them?
I feel like it should be
Here's-
on both.
But
And-
here's the situation where we are. It's not proven, okay? It's not proven that he did nothing. So we have to make sure that we understand, like, there is no proof that he had a weapon. There is no proof that he made a threat, but there's also no proof that he didn't. So with the probable or the reasonable suspicion of the situation where there was circumstances that lead to the possibility of him at the very least making a statement and a gesture that was deemed by the other individual as threatening.
He didn't see it, though. The person confirming it didn't see it.
I'm speaking of the individual who
With the interaction.
with
Yeah,
him.
is claiming something, what they say and what he says is completely different.
And
So whose side are you, I mean, you gotta run the middle, right? Like, you can't be like, oh, well, you have to just go one way or the other, because if what you're saying right now is that one person said something, the other person said something, no proof of any of it, minus the kid that said he thought he heard something and a shoulder movement, and then the kid that said, you know, that said what he's doing went immediately to talk to him. So,
and we don't know that they immediately went and talked to each other. And again, this is based on the circumstances that we know.
is that he came into his space, touched him. That's what we know for sure.
Touched his Chromebook, because again, it's his word versus.
Exactly, but when it's his word against someone else's, it's like, I don't know, Connor said it, so. But if it's the other guy saying you lifted up his shirt, then that's completely fine. Then that's where it's like, well, we don't know that he didn't do it. But if he says, sit up, bud,
We
come
don't
on.
know that the other kid didn't touch Connor's nose either. So even if he says no, I didn't touch his nose, Connor's saying he did.
It's one person's word over another.
So
But it seems like
the
that you're
same.
only like, I'm gonna ride the middle only when it's him saying something, though.
No, we're looking at the totality of the situation and.
Because he's saying that he didn't lift his shirt and didn't tell him anything, right? So then why is there more weight put on the accuser than the person that is also saying, I didn't do any of that?
We're not weighing it one way or the other. We're looking at what we got from both sides, and what we can confirm happened is the computer was touched.
Someone else's
There's an
computer. He
interaction.
touched someone else's stuff.
So
And there was a verbal interaction.
that's
That he said, get away from me.
that's the confirmation of the computer was touched. There was a verbal interaction, but those circumstances make it likely.
No, it doesn't.
Not definite. Likely
That the person accusing is right. So that's you leaning that way, because you're like, so that's insane. So because I don't care if he told him to F off. I don't care. Don't touch my stuff. Get away from me. And the fact that he can't say get away from me. He can't say that. But the kid can be like, oh gosh, you did this and this and this, and then all of a sudden it's true, or that it's believed could happen. Yeah, the freaking sun could have fallen out of the sky at the same exact time. That could have happened, but it doesn't. That doesn't. Those two things don't mean that he lifted up his shirt and that he said whatever.
Right, and that's why I'm saying we don't have proof one way or the other that happened, but the preponderance of the evidence makes it likely that it happened.
No,
So
it doesn't.
that's
Oh my god.
and that's where reasonable suspicion falls is. And,
It's fine. Dude, stop.
and what tips the feather is having a witness that stated that Connor also stated was there. Connor also said, talk to this kid because they were there. So, and we talked to that kid because of Connor stating that they were there. And that kid stated, I saw this. I didn't see a weapon or anything under the shirt. Just I saw him lift up his shirt. He could have been scratching his belly.
He could have been doing anything, freaking
Yeah.
robot.
Right.
Anything, but all of a sudden he's lifting up his shirt is because his buddy went immediately to talk to him. You know what I mean? Like he said, right? That they're BSing behind him, talking to each other. One of them comes around, starts messing with Connor. Connor says, F off, or whatever he says. Leave me alone. Buddy goes back and then tells me, like, hey, you've done this. And then all of a sudden now these two stories are corroborating.
And that's
Definitely plausible. Just like him just telling someone to leave me alone and all of a sudden his shirt comes up. Just because I say something to someone doesn't mean that anything else has happened. Right?
Again, we don't know for certain whether it happened or didn't.
So then, I'm kicking a dead horse right now, but like, it's not. Then you also don't know for sure that this kid didn't do it purposefully, right? If you don't know for sure it happened, you don't know for sure what this kid's intention was. Using your own logic.
We don't, but we also don't have any evidence to.
Did you dig into this?
support-
Any of that? Did you investigate that avenue of it?
Yes, we did. Again, what I told you guys from the beginning, our job is not to prove Connor guilty of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is to try and find the facts of.
So then every single thing that was done for Connor, or this is the assessment, right? Everything that was done for
We can't
Connor
share
was
what
done.
for the
I'm not,
other student.
but it was done though, right?
Yeah.
For the other student, this threat assessment was done for the other student.
The threat assessment was done for our school community. For any threat. We don't do threat assessments for particular students. Even if a student says so-and-so said they're gonna kill me. The threat assessment is not for
The
that
accuser.
student. It is for the school community. Because, and I'm gonna give real examples. There have been times where students have carried out violent acts at school where they have told other people they're gonna do X, Y, and Z to them, and they actually were. This is the distraction. I told people I'm gonna get these kids, but I actually am after them. Or kids constantly sending Snapchat things saying they're gonna shoot up the school tomorrow, and then tomorrow nothing happens, and they're just desensitizing people to stuff. And then it's 6 weeks later when it happens, when no one was expecting it, because other kid always says that he's just something's wrong with him. He's always saying that. But today is the day. And last night he did not send a Snapchat saying don't come to school tomorrow. He just showed up to school and did what he did, and no one expected it because they're desensitized. And so
Oh, stop messing with me.
even in that situation, you don't know. Like you don't know if a kid is serious or not when they say something. When they do something, you don't know but you can't treat it as though it's not serious, because in those situations where the kid said, oh, I'm gonna kill that kid tomorrow, and then they're like, oh, that kid needs to watch out. Well, that kid's at home safe with his parents, and maybe he's the kid protecting the other kid from this, and his friend was killed because that's who the guy actually wanted. And if the school doesn't enact their threat assessment process and keep the kid who made the threat away from the school, and while they do the investigation and put things in place to ensure safety for all of the students, it's not just about one kid. It's the whole community, our students, our teachers, our parents, right? When we get a report, we have to take it seriously. We can't just say, oh, I know this kid, they would never do anything like that. And there have been times where reports have come, and I'm like, nah, this kid, oh my gosh, what, like, are you serious? But I have to remind myself that it doesn't matter how I feel about a
You
kid,
gotta take
what I know
emotion
about a
out
kid.
and
I have
focus
to
on.
take the emotion out of it, and I have to focus on the report, and I have to find facts, I have to find out what happened, and look at it objectively, because if I say, you know what, this kid is such a good kid, they're quiet, and they've never been in trouble, I don't think they would say anything like that. And then tomorrow.
Okay, and those are some pretty extreme cases, right? Going from, no interactions with Connor, other than good stuff with the ROAR programs and everything. I just, if there's not enough proof that it happened, or equal amounts of proof that it did or didn't, that's what you said a second ago, that it was like, you really can't prove that it did or can't prove that it didn't. What?
So what tips the scale is having a witness? If there was no third party witness that.
There's a teacher sitting right there that saw nothing, heard nothing.
The teacher's not a witness in that case. They didn't.
But the
see
kid standing, do you understand? Like, you can't see through your human body doing things.
It is very likely to be able to see someone from behind lifting up their shirt or scratching their shoulder.
Yeah, anything. But it's interesting that the story is what the kid said. And then he went back and talked to his buddy.
That doesn't mean that the witness did not see what they saw.
Just like physiology says that you can't see through a human body. Please say that was the right subject. Okay. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can't see through from your peripheral, like you're back here. So the ground that we're standing on right now, you can't even prove that. Like, other than what the kid said. And there was 3 days of anything that could have happened. And the fact that the two kids were messing around, doing whatever they're doing, Connor doing nothing, one walks up, maybe Connor, whatever he says to him to get him away from him, and then all of a sudden he comes back and it's story. Could also be as plausible as the other thing, right?
But again, there's not any evidence to suggest that happened.
And so then you pulled up this, I mean, no, you can't tell me, but like, you did a deep dive in the other kid too then, right? Because that's the only way you would know if that there was anything going on wherever else. Like, did you talk to this kid's teachers, this kid's friends? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want a full picture of, you can't tell me that it didn't happen if that none of that happened. Then there's an unknown that you are not aware of it. That's all you can say. You can't say no because you don't have a definitive answer.
Correct. Unknown means we don't know. It doesn't mean no, it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it definitely happened. Is we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say something definitely did or didn't happen if I don't know for sure. Even if there were 9 witnesses unknown. Because if 9 witnesses say...
But you just said that the one witness is all you needed, that was your corroboration.
Yes, I said even if there were 9 witnesses, it would still say unknown. I don't know if Connor had a weapon or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. We didn't find a weapon on him at home. we were not able to search him while he was at school. It would have been a lot different if that kid would have actually reported it while at school and we were able to go through this whole process and have our SRO search Connor and then either found or didn't find a weapon, right? But we weren't able to do that. We didn't get the report until after school. Connor's already gone. So I can't sit here and say he had a weapon or he didn't have a weapon. It's unknown. I can't even say it's likely that he had a weapon or unlikely that he had a weapon. Unknown. Don't know. That's something that is black and white. It's yes or no. And if I don't know for sure, I'm not going to say, no, he didn't have a weapon or yes, he did. In terms of the interaction, that's a little bit more ambiguous. It's because of perception, right? Even if Connor was scratching his belly, what did that kid see?
So what? Get away from me. I'm scratching my belly. You're in my space. You shouldn't be there in the first place. You cannot tell me that anyone has the oh, it's just kids. It's kids being kids. That's okay. No.
It's not okay, but it is typical middle school boys. They mess with each other. That doesn't mean it's okay. No.
But he said he never talks to this kid. The kid said he never talks to Connor. So what does that look more like to you? It's not two buddies like, let's get your stuff, Connor. It's someone that's being an asshole, walking around and messing with someone's stuff, trying to get a rise, trying to do something to make him mad.
And we don't know that was the purpose.
We don't know that it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
So again, way too ambiguous. Right? We cannot prove or disprove that kid's intent with messing with Connor's computer.
But we can just, this is Connor's fault here.
We can prove he messed with the computer. We can prove that there was an interaction between the two. So.
And the only word that you're weighing heavy on is the person that's accusing him of it.
And the witness. Again.
That you know or don't know, can't prove, unknown, if there was any type of something that happened beforehand, or that he just told him a story and now he knows and it's in his brain, and you know what I mean?
I'd honestly recommend that you reach out to Kenlyn.
I'm going to,
because
yeah.
she may explain things in a way, right? Just like verbalizing it in a different way that'll help bring some clarity to the process. And
I'm fine with the process. The fact that this happened because someone accused someone else of doing something, perfect. Not against this.
Right.
Against that can't prove or disprove. He did what he did, but we're gonna tag him with it anyways. And I get that the searches and everything.
Right.
Again,
It
if there's a
aligns
silver
with the
lining,
process.
that's it. But you can't retroactively, because something fake happened, because someone else caused it, Connor, you're in trouble. And it's going to include this. So that's where I'm just I can't brain for that. So are you still there? Are you lost?
I was wondering myself.
Oh, wait.
Uh-oh. Did he try to text you to say he was off?
I don't know. He's fine. So I feel like we're at stalemate here, and you guys have what you have. We're gonna, have what we have, and so he can come back to school, do everything he needs to do, turn on his work in that he's been working on,
Following the RMS plan.
with coming in, getting searched, doing whatever he's gonna do. So until I talk to this lady, I'm not gonna sign this.
Okay.
That's fine.
And prior to Connor coming to school, we would know whether or not you were in agreement. So, you know, we would need you to be in agreement with the plan for him to come to school.
Okay.
So just
Fine.
contact us and let us know, and then we need a signature if you choose to agree.
Sounds good.
I will alert her that to be looking for, shall I say phone call?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll give her a heads up to be looking for your call.
Sweet. All right.
Because
Well,
she
thank
might
you for
be
your
able to
time.
explain some things too, and she is involved in such situations very often. Like, we are required to alert her for any, and I'm not just saying, speaking for our school, but just all of the charters and even schools in the district as well.
Okay.
So she'll have some more background knowledge.
Sounds good. All right, buddy. I need to go get water.
And then you have, I know, I ran out, I'm like, ooh. You have copies for Dad then?
yeah.
Okay.
Can you hold these, please? All right. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you. It's like my battery started to give up just now.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. I'm struggling.
Drop me off at the house, or can you get some food before you drop me?
You hungry, Amanda? Something in your body.
Honestly, I could work with it.
No ice cream? That's not even a meat. Although McDonald's is
Yes, trash. Food is
oh my god, I'm dying.
really good fashion. Although, in my opinion, I think Burger King is not that good.
Hey, you don't say that. 2 hours.